What if the iPhone didn't exist? AirPods, iPads, Macs, what if those were just side projects, like peanuts compared to Apple's biggest product? The Apple TV. Not like that Apple TV, this Apple TV. So this is the story of a top secret Apple product, one that we just heard rumors Apple's thinking about bringing back to life. And I do have some insider information in a story that I've never shared before, till now. So come with me on a little trip back to 2011, almost 14 years ago, where the tech world was like a very different place. So this is a time when Apple was readying the debut of what was going to be a breakthrough virtual assistant called Siri. The iPad was in its very early days, with a lot of people betting on its demise and making fun of its name. And at that time, Steve Jobs announced he would be stepping down as Apple CEO.
Steve Jobs has resigned as chief executive of Apple, the company he built.
But also saying he was going to stay on behind the scenes to help build Apple's next revolutionary product, a TV set that would change the world. So know what you're thinking? Like Apple making a TV set that wasn't just some sort of random rumor, but was a full-blown open secret around this time. Think of it like the Apple car is now. Apple might not have ever talked about it, but everybody knew it was coming. Word on the street is that Apple was going to unveil a physical TV with breakthrough technology in terms of both hardware and software. In fact, Steve Jobs himself told colleagues that, quote, he finally cracked it. And many believed Apple's TV would like pioneer a new UI, voice controls, and kind of change the way that we consumed content on the big screen. I totally recognize like saying this today sounds like bonkers crazy, as obviously we know Apple's time and money was much better spent on things like iPads, iPhones, and Macs. Back in the early 2010s, it seemed like it was definitely going to happen. Details were sparse, but those with knowledge of the project described it as a totally intuitive iPhone-like experience for your TV. Switching between channels and sources are said to be super sleek and powered via voice commands through Siri. It also would have intelligent recommendations. It would sync through iCloud with all of your photos and music, and the hardware, typical Apple fashion, would probably be like pristine. So like obviously we know how this Apple TV sort of story ended up playing out, but back then it was a really big deal, especially to me. There are a lot of stories that came out like this. And you'll notice the source being TechnoBuffalo. It was a website that I owned and ran for a very long time. There was a lot of details that we shared about how it was going to be controlled and the technology. It was going to be OLED. It was a time when OLED really wasn't around. But the part that I didn't share was how I got that scoop, and then how I verified that scoop, because it was me personally. So I wanted to feel like enough time has passed. I can share the entire story now. So I was on a plane flying home. I don't remember where I was flying home from. And I was sitting next to a gentleman who struck up a conversation with me, was asking me what I did, and I asked him what he did. And he was very, very high up working for Brookstone. There's stores that still exist. Maybe you've heard of them, maybe not. They sell like a bunch of electronics. And he was asking what if I was interested in anything that Brookstone had, and we were just kind of generally talking. And then he gave me his business card, and he looked around and he goes, "You want to know something crazy?" And I was like, "Sure." He was like, "I've seen the Apple TV." I was like, "The TV set?" And then he told me a bunch of things about it, and I'll tell you sort of how I ended up trusting him. So first he says, our factories for production in China, we share lines with some of the projects that Apple is doing. And I was there visiting, seeing some new products that were coming out, and I saw the Apple TV set and talked to some of the folks that were working on it. And I went through and checked and verified what he said, that they did indeed share some space. He said the Apple TV that he saw had modular capabilities. It had a camera on top, and that was what was going to be used for facial recognition, but the camera could be swapped out for speakers or other accessories he said Apple was evaluating and testing. And I know it seems very far-fetched, but it was very interesting, and I shared all the information on the website that got syndicated, but I went home and I verified him, who he was, looked him up. And it was a pretty interesting, story. Well, obviously, as the story unfolded, it didn't come out. And these things tend to be very moving targets. But it was fun, I guess, to kind of have that access from somebody. Now, he very easily could have been lying. And in all fairness, I never was able to get a second source to verify. But it made for an interesting, I think, discussion piece and sort of understanding what technology was then and how Apple was thinking about subscription services, what it was going to be. I think kind of laid the foundation for what Apple is doing now. And as great as this sounds, this TV project that was all but confirmed never actually happened. And the obvious reason for that, I think, is without Steve Jobs, the team lacked a visionary leader. And while that may be true, what's more likely is that technical hurdles could not have been overcome in a way that made sense. There was a lot of rumors circulating about how this thing was going to work, but it was allegedly going to use Siri, and voice control was going to be a big part of this TV's interface. And given that Apple was still struggling with Siri today, I think that probably would have been a roadblock. Imagine just change channel. It's like, here's what I found on the web. It probably wouldn't have worked as expected. And the TV technology is rapidly changing, right? It's hard for Apple to settle on a design when sort of the tech was changing so quickly. And also there's not a regular upgrade cycle for TVs. You're not buying a new TV every year like people do phones or every other year. And the biggest one is that TVs are expensive. And like I said earlier, replaced way less often than computers or phones. And smart TVs didn't make as much sense for consumers back then. Streaming was not essential like it is today. And even though the Apple TV we have today is different from the rumors, in a lot of ways, Apple achieved what Steve Jobs set out to accomplish. Apple TV Plus already has a high quality collection of content. 90% of the experience that we were supposed to get with the Apple TV set exists in the current Apple TV and sort of the ecosystem of iPad and iPhone that kind of changed content consumption completely. And the TV, actual TV, may have been sort of made in vain or too niche. And in many ways, that original Steve Jobs vision lives on today. Since I'm telling stories, I have spent more money on Anker stuff in the past 4 weeks than I want to admit. I bought their Anker Mag Go power bank. I bought their Anker Mag Go power bank plus an Apple Watch charger. I bought their Anker Mag Go Nano power bank. It's got 10,000 milliamp hours of battery. I bought their 3-in-1 power bank that's got the power prongs built in and USB-C cable. Suffice to say, I put my own money behind Anker's products. So adding to the list of kind of Anker things that I've got, meet the Anker Mag Go wireless charger. And that is what's sponsoring this video. And it's probably my new favorite toy to charge my iPhone. So first of all, it's Qi 2. So it's the new wireless standard for charging. A lot of Android phones are going to support this. Current flock of iPhones obviously support the Qi charging. It essentially puts the magnets there for every phone. 15 watt ultra fast charging for MagSafe compatible phones. Can charge an iPhone 16 Pro, for example, to 100% in like an hour and 53 minutes, which is pretty awesome. And like for comparison, this speeds me anything to you, like the latest 25 watt MagSafe charger will charge the same thing in about 2 hours and 4 minutes. So surprisingly, can charge faster than the latest 25 watt MagSafe charger. Unsurprisingly, it's also twice as fast as the typical 7.5 watt wireless charger. You've got a ton of orientations too. One of my favorite things about my case is that I can like spin it around. I've got the same things here. Awesome for putting your phone in standby mode. It kind of works absolutely perfect for that. You can rotate 360 degrees. It's got a really satisfying noise as it turns. It's mechanical too, so there's no friction there either. The charging pad angle is also adjustable for easier viewing and also to charge for other items like AirPods too. If you want, you can actually put it flat and then put something on top of it if it doesn't have the MagSafe magnets built in. Listen, Anker makes really good stuff. That's the whole point of that intro of all the money I've spent on Anker. If you're in the market for a stand, for your desk, for your bed, you want it to charge fast, you want it to have the newest standard, you want the reliability and build quality that you expect from a company that's been around for a really long time, this is absolutely the way to go. It does everything that you'd expect. Plus, it feels good to turn. You get multiple angles. It doesn't just have to charge an iPhone. It is a really good looking, really well built charging accessory. So there's crazy deals going on for Black Friday and Cyber Monday. I'll put a link down below if you want to either learn more or pick one up for yourself. So obviously, despite like all of the rumors, this project like never saw the light of day. And there was a variety of reasons that this happened. Let's just say for a moment that did happen. Like what would have happened if the Apple TV set really did launch as Steve Jobs intended. Like, how would the tech world be different? For starters, if it had launched early enough, it would have been really well positioned to totally change the streaming wars. Not in the sense there would like be no Netflix or Hulu, but there likely wouldn't be like a Roku. At least not the behemoth that we have today. Roku and devices like it succeeded not just because of their lower price points, mainly thanks to their ability to add smart, seamless, internet-connected brain to a dumb TV via a box. Apple's TV would have been certainly more expensive. The technology that it offered, the packaging of that Apple hardware and software together, I think would have changed the way that we consume content back then. And speaking of Netflix, there of course could have been a major opportunity here for Apple to potentially have jumped into the streaming wars way earlier than Apple TV Plus. So remember that Apple was a big player in the digital media world. The iTunes store was massive, and Apple has really long-standing connections with all the big record labels and video distributors. If Apple TV became an essential digital portal for your living room, Apple could have very easily used that to their advantage, potentially striking deals to stream movies and music right to your TV. Not just stuff you bought, but media you subscribe to. It would have been like a perfect, let's say like testing ground. Always connected to the internet, Apple would control the entire experience, and they could have revolutionized streaming like they did a few years earlier with the iPod. Listen, this Apple TV set is probably one of hundreds of projects that Apple worked on behind the scenes that never made it to market. And we see this happen with companies all the time. There's an idea, there's a concept, there's a prototype, and it gets tested and evaluated. Will it be adopted by the market? Does it make financial sense? And this one clearly didn't. But I do think the work that went in to the Apple TV set laid the foundation for what we have now with Apple TV. And it just goes to show there was a lot of forward thinking from Apple back in the day when it comes to streaming and how we're going to consume content. They had the right idea, but we're just about a decade too early.